on now? There's a ghost going behind us here.
Do we know if it's on?
Alpha and Omega has just gone by us. It's Sir David the Bard. Sir David the Bard, I'm coming to you from Australia. I have a guest today. Allison is with me. And Allison and I did a video 3 years ago. And this is the second of a...
Part 2.
2 years ago.
No, 3 years ago. This is part 2.
This is part 2. I never want her to correct me, but you can see how that's going. So anyway, we're here in Kangaroo City, and she's from another state. She comes about once a year to visit me, and the only reason I visit her is she buys me dinner. And I got a little tail today, lobster tail today. She bought me my first lobster that I've had in 35 years, so that's something to remember. And we thought we'd just do a little video together, and we wanted to welcome you all back. A lot of you think I'm dead, and it's true.
No.
And we wanted to talk about the church welfare system. And Allison has taken a tour of the church welfare warehouse.
Yes, Welfare Square.
Welfare Square. That's.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, it is. It's called Welfare Square, and she wants to let you know that the statement that the Mormons take care of themselves. There's a little bit of a slant on that, so maybe I can turn some time over to her and let her explain how the Mormons get their food when they're having unemployment or a death in the family, or they need food from the church, how they get that food and what they have to do to get it.
Take it away?
Take or give it away.
Well, real fast. Oh, this is a pipe. I don't want people to think this is some strange plastic implement.
It's a sex instrument that just got left over.
Oh my gosh. As you can see, he is very much alive and well. But to let everyone know, I've never been LDS, but yes, so I went to the Welfare Square earlier this week or last week, and I'd never been there, and I saw the people that were working there, and the guides told us that you know, some of these people were volunteers. And it wasn't until I got that the guy that was making the cheese looked really happy. He was a nice guy. And then somewhere around the jam, when we got to the jam building, they didn't look so happy. Not that that really matters, to be honest with you, but I just all of a sudden thought, are these people really volunteers, or are they actually getting food assistance from the church, and are they working for their food? Because I remember that David did a video on that a while back, a few videos talking about how you've actually worked in the cannery before.
Right.
And it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I do think the church does really great things, especially with they've got it all laid out. I mean, they know what they're doing. I'm going to lean on this whether you like it or not. I mean, they know what they're doing.
I know you like it. Go ahead.
They know what they're doing, and you know, they've got their act together better than the Baptists and the Presbyterians do in that area. But I just kept thinking, are a lot of these people working here because they have no choice and pretty much like almost shamed into it, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, well, one thing that I can kind of add to what Allison is saying is that if you're in trouble in the church where you don't have a job, or you've been divorced, or you've had a death in the family, and you need assistance from the church itself, many times they'll let you work at DI. Desert Industries allows people to come and sweep the floor and wash windows and do things for welfare food. The food cannery is it's a full-time operation. It makes cans of chili and cans of spaghetti and jam, and it produces its own milk. They have milk cows, they produce their own milk. And if you're in trouble in the church and you need assistance that way, you go to your bishop, and the bishop refers you to the Relief Society president, and you make out a list of things you need for your family, and then the bishop signs that list and they give it to the welfare person in the ward, and then a truck, every 2 weeks a truck comes to the ward and delivers the food and the milk and the meat, and then you pick it up at the church. And the church has done that for me on occasion, and I appreciate that. It's one of the good things about the church. But you'll get a bishop or state president or an official that believes you should work for your food. Now, it varies from bishop to bishop, and sometimes they want you to come and sweep the chapel out and clean the toilets, but that didn't work out so well, so they make everyone sweep the chapel now and clean the toilets. So the welfare people, I don't know if they just dovetail them into the group that sweeps the floor and cleans the toilets, or they turn that over. But anyway, they want you to work for your food if you can. So if you played disabled like I did, I never had to do it because I would always limp on one foot and tell them that I was disabled. So I never had to work for my food.
You got lucky because there was a lot of disabled people working there.
Oh, there were?
Yes.
Man, they're dipping the bottom of the barrel.
Well, I didn't say that he did. I'm just saying, interrupting to say that then you got lucky if they didn't pick you.
Yeah, they didn't pick. Well, I had too many children at home I had to watch. So anyway, when I was younger, much younger, in my 20s, I was living in Lancaster, California, and they had out there a peach farm or an apple orchard. And I remember saying this on one of my other videos, that we would get what's called a welfare assignment in our ward. And what that is that you get a piece of paper, the bishop reads, we need 3 families or we need 30 men this weekend to go out and pick apples, and you just did it. And we went out there and they had ladders and they had a guy that was in charge, and we were forced labor is what we were. And we would pick the apples and the oranges and whatever off the tree, and then those trucks would take that over to the cannery, and then they would strip the apples and strip the oranges and make orange juice and whatever. So it's a full-fledged operation, but it's based upon assignment and forced labor.
Right, and all I could help but think of is, okay, a lot of those people were either pretty young or pretty older, and I just kept thinking, if some of those people are there because they need assistance, there's just more productive things financially, I would think, for themselves to do for your family than to volunteer your time for a corporation that's got billions of dollars. And I'm not trying to say that harshly. I just think that to have as much money as the Mormon Church does, the people that are benefiting from the food should probably be using their resources to be with their families and finding work, not being almost in servitude to the church, literally for the food they're putting in their mouth. I don't know, that's just my 2 cents, and it kind of bothered me.
Right. Well, I had an autistic son, and one of the things I found is limitations in the church. When we were asking the church for services for him to help him survive, they told us no. They said, we're not going to do anything for him. Go to your local and federal and state government and get programs and medications and those kinds of things. We're not going to help him. So that system does have its limitations. And the other thing as far as limitations is that it's not perpetual. You can get food and assistance from the church for whatever, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, but after that they expect you to get a job, and you're supposed to be looking for a job while you're sweeping the floor.
Right, yes.
There's the problem.
That's why it bothers me.
Right, you can't get a job if you don't have time and a telephone and clothes for an interview and whatever. It's hard to become independent if you're dependent upon the food.
That's exactly what bothered me.
Yeah, you can't do it. I had a knowledge and a friend in the state. He was in the state presidency in Newbury Park, California, who owned a Shell gas station. And I mentioned this once before in a previous video, but if you haven't seen all 1,700 videos, you might not remember this. But anyway, he owned a gas station and he needed assistance. And you got to remember, there's limitations now. A bishop, I've mentioned this before and I've forgotten it, a bishop can give you, I think, $5,000 in assistance and cash. And a state president, I think, can give you $10,000. But anyway, this assistant to the state president needed gas put in his gas station so he could sell and support his family. And they wrote him a check for $10,000. And that's a lot of floor sweeping.
Yeah, right.
You're out there like, you're sweeping the whole damn city with floors. But anyway, there's limitations. And if you can, the church doesn't require you to pay back, but they kind of require you to pay on time while you're getting it. If you're getting the food, I remember once.
Tithing too while you're getting it.
Right, you better be a full tithe payer.
While you're getting the
while
assistance.
you're getting it, right. I once had a situation where they gave me some food, and they said, you're a glazer, which is a glass man. We put screens and glass in houses. And they said, you're getting food from us, and we have a lady that has a broken window, and we'd like you to go over and fix her window. Well, thank God it wasn't a ceiling or a roof that I had to climb up on. It was just at ground level. So I went over to her house, and I went in to fix her window. And she, what, you need another toy? What do you need?
No, I'm looking for my water.
Oh, her, okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, you can see why she likes these videos. Anyway, I went into the house to fix the window, and this lady had 15 cats in the house, and she was like 92 years old, and anywhere you went in the house was a cat crap. Now, you know, I needed that food really, really bad. You know, I had to step over a lot of cat crap to get to that window, but I fixed it, and I continued to get the food. So, you know, there's some ups and some downs with the assistance that the Mormon Church gives. Now, the other limitation, it didn't used to be this way, and I've lost my thought.
Did it go?
The thought went away, you know. It got crowded by a funny. A funny got in there, and it got, let's see, there's a limitation of the time that you can have the food. You've got to work while you have the food. You don't have to pay it back, but you better be working while you get it. And if you're disabled or you're a mom and you've got small children, you can do something at home. They'll give you some sewing or something like that at home. But it's not just a cash. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Is that they used to pay your house payment. If you were behind in your house payment, they used to pay your house payment. But they now will only pay for your rent. If you're renting, they'll pay the rent for a month or two. But if you're buying, they won't, because they say, well, you're going to get that money back cash in equity. It might be 45 years, but the concept is that they're giving cash out. So most of the Mormon money that goes for housing, the Mormons buy a house and then they rent it to somebody else, so when the other person gets cash assistance, the rent goes into the hands of the landlord. So again, it's kind of a cutout.
Well, the missionaries made sure to, on Welfare Square, made sure to say it's not a handout, it's a hand up.
Well, I call it a foot in the ass is what it is.
But they did have really good cheese.
Good what?
Cheese.
And they have the best mashed potatoes in the world, and the jam is fabulous. The jam is good, the mashed potatoes are good.
But yet I could not go in there and buy.
No, none of it's for sale, and it'll say on the can Deseret. That's the brand name, and they hold pretty high standards. you're not going to get poisoned eating Deseret food. They, you know, I would put a hair in it now and then, but you can see I don't do that anymore. That's how I got bald. I was over there most of the time putting a hair in a can, and so anyway, it's a good program. It's better than any other church if you look at it that way.
Aside from probably I don't know if the Catholics have, I mean, they can go toe to toe, I'm quite sure, with the Mormons.
Yes, I think so, because the Catholics don't make you pay it back or work for it.
Right.
Catholic Charities is pretty good about just giving.
Right.
And giving when people are in trouble. And Catholic Charities will do a job search for you and let you use computers and things to find jobs. But Catholic Charities certainly is a front runner, you know. But the Mormon Church tries the best that they can. And their system has changed a lot, the Mormons, over the years. And I certainly, you know, have been, well, I don't think I'm a critic of the Mormon Church, but I'm in what is that, denial. But the assistance that I've received from the Mormon Church, I want to be honest about.
Right.
I have received money for rent, and I have received money for utilities, and I have received food from the Mormon Church when I was unemployed. I'm bipolar, and I couldn't hold a job longer than it takes you to take a piss. And so I've had the church on many occasions help me, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to say that out loud. And I want to.
You want to bear your testimony.
Go get my garments. Let me put my garments on so that I
can. You want to bear your testimony.
Pele-el. Oh God, hear the words of my mouth.
And what you can't hear right now or see is that his wife is upstairs laughing.
But she's always upstairs laughing. She's always upstairs laughing. She's laughing why she married me. So anyway, that's I don't know. You got anything else you want to talk about the?
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I spent some time in Rexburg,
Idaho.
Idaho, and I'd never been there for any other time than to stop through under an hour. I spent, I think, about 4 or 5 days there. Visited with some friends, and the stereotype is so true though about the young married couples. I mean, they're babies and they're walking around with babies. These young men look like they could not have been off their mission for longer than a year. And I just saw them in Walmart with just babies, and
Well, it's funny
shocking.
that you say they haven't been off their missions for a year. At BYU, when I was there, the instruction was that missionaries are to be married not more than a year off their mission.
Oh.
So that is an instruction for missionaries.
Oh.
So what you were seeing is obedient missionaries.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Another interesting thing is I sat in a class. I was able to sit in a class which was on, I think, the Book of Mormon. But it was so bizarre because this one gentleman at the beginning of the class, they asked, if anything interesting had happened to them over the weekend, and this young man raised his hand and he said, "I got married." And nobody said congratulations, and the professor, all he did was he took his glasses off, cleaned them, and he said, "What temple was it at?" And then the gentleman answered, and to be honest, I was appalled that he could not tell this gentleman congratulations. Instead, the first thing out of his mouth and only thing out of his mouth was, "What temple?" Yeah. From an outsider, that's weird and sad. That's something to congratulate. But
Yeah. Yeah, you see a lot of those. I was talking about this a little bit earlier today. That when I was at BYU, if you're in a Sunday school class, or you're in a priesthood meeting, or you're in a Relief Society meeting, I don't know. I haven't been in too many Relief Society meetings, but when you're a man in the church and you're in an instructional meeting, priesthood and Sunday school, one of the secret phrases and one of the secret things of being LDS is the teacher would ask a question and then they would call on somebody, and the person answering the question would say, well, when I was on my mission in Norway, and then they would answer the question. They would always say, when I was on my mission in Brazil, when I was on my mission, and that would give strength to their answer, that they are a returned missionary. Therefore, their answer has tremendous strength and knowledge from the prophet of the church that what they're about to say is church, excuse me, it's church doctrine. I would just raise my hand and say, I'm the little bard, and that had no meaning whatsoever. So people would be lighting up their cigarettes and drinking, and they would be, doing other things, changing
You
the
weren't
baby.
legitimate. You weren't a legitimate.
I've never been legitimate. I've been illegitimate since birth. But anyway, that is one of their secret phrases that they use to make the rest of us feel like dog shit. And it worked pretty well. It worked pretty well. One of the main pushes of my first marriage was that I wanted to prove that I was as worthy as they were, the missionaries. And so I was able to get married in the temple, showing that I was not immoral. If you don't go on a mission and you're 19 years old, there's the presumption, it's hardly even rebuttable, but it's the presumption that you're immoral. That's why you didn't get called on a mission. And I didn't want that tag put on me. So I just raised my hand and says, is there any girl at BYU that wants to get married? And there was only one, and she was blind, and I took her. So, any other observations as an outsider that you've made about...
Well, so now I'm back in Utah for a little while, and it's interesting to me how many how many juice places there are, like fresh juice. We have that in the South, don't get me wrong, but it's an abundance that has popped up of trendy juice restaurants, super healthy, organic chains of restaurant, little, what do you call them, strip mall restaurants. And then the big one is the drive-through soft drink. I know the one that is right by my hotel is called Swig.
Yeah.
Swig. Yeah, and it's fascinating to me because they will be lined up like 10 cars to get, I mean, it's a good idea, don't get me wrong, but it's fascinating to compare that versus, I've got some, thank you. Bard, do you need water?
Yes. Bard needs water. Jesus, bring me water.
Thank you, Alpha.
Oh, Alpha brought the water. Where's Omega today? It says day off. Go ahead.
It was interesting to me to see the drive-through soda thing. We do not have that in Tennessee. I'm from Tennessee. Before I leave, I do want to go buy it and get one, but I don't get the appeal. But apparently, there's a place in Rexburg as well that's just a soda shop, and one of my sweet girls that is she's a returned missionary that I was hanging out with, and she told me that there was like this place that we drove by was a hangout soda shop that's been around for years, and she said, it's not really that interesting, this town's not that interesting. And I laughed and I said, oh, Jane, we're going to say her name's Jane. I said, everything about Rexburg is interesting. You have no idea because you live here, but
Well, I was thinking, and we were talking a little bit earlier about the Mormon Church being a cult.
We were? Oh.
I was. When I talk, you don't listen. So, this is...
I would not
This
say.
is new information now to you. It's old to me because we talked about it. But anyway, I was saying...
Do they shun people?
No, you can't shun people if you're not a Mormon. Only Mormons know how to shun well.
They don't wear
Are you going to let me talk? Or, this is a typical interview. Anyway, we're talking about the Mormon Church being a cult. And I said to you, I have never seen a cross on a Mormon church. Now, you said you saw them in earlier times they used to have a cross on the Mormon Church.
I don't remember what book this was in. And it had to have been Brigham Young because, of course, we know Joseph Smith didn't make it out of Carthage. But apparently...
He made it out of Carthage.
Well, apparently in the very early days of the church out west, there were crosses used and they were quickly removed because Brigham Young thought that they competed with the other churches. And I know that sounds crazy, like a load of BS, but I swear I read it and it makes perfect sense to me. Just the mind of Brigham Young too. That to me would be something that I think he would think of. Like, we want to make our church stand out. We want to make it different.
Oh, well, they've done that.
We want, spark curiosity. So we're gonna remove a cross and call ourselves a church, that kind of thing. But
yeah. Well, I've been thinking when I was thinking about cults and the cross, how a cross hung upside down and the satanic ritual abuses. Rituals is part of satanic religion. That there's no crosses on a Mormon church. I've never seen one. And I've never seen a picture of Jesus on the cross inside a Mormon church or outside at a Mormon activity. The cross is shunned purposely by the Mormon church. And if you're a Mormon, somehow, I don't know how, but somehow I was taught, and Mormons that I know were taught, that if you saw a cross on the necklace, you kind of did one of these, like it's like
like Dracula?
Like Dracula cross, that if a little girl or boys don't wear some boys not wear necklaces, but anyway, if you saw a cross on a necklace, it was kind of like you shunned it. And isn't it interesting that the only people who shun the cross and don't use the cross and fear the cross are satanic religions? And Mormon doctrine follows that exactly. Now, when you look at the Salt Lake Temple, you see the clasped hands of the Masonic tokens and symbols that can be used as a satanic symbol, and you see the all-seeing eye, and you see the Pentagon.
Pentagon.
It's the Pentagon where they have the guns and the ammunition and shit like that. What's the other place?
Pentagram.
Pentagram. Now they put the pentagrams on the temple, but the Pentagon they put in Washington. But anyway.
Haven't you missed him?
Yeah, like a wart on your nose. Anyway, they have the satanic symbols on the Salt Lake Temple. And Brigham Young had a lot to do with that, and he had a lot to do with getting rid of the cross, evidently. And Allison is not an expert. We're both telling you what we think is the truth. And I've never seen a cross ever used in any kind of literature or anywhere in the Mormon church. But she said she's seen it.
Yeah, but I don't remember.
Where
it was
or
a
when.
credible source that said it, or I read it from a very credible source. And I have no idea. It was so bizarre that I believed it. Like
Me?
Well, there was something else that I was going to say. About the cross. I quit wearing my cross like 3 years ago when I came out here. I realized fast that wasn't
Acceptable.
It wasn't warmly embraced. Especially at Deseret Book when I would go in.
Well, now, when you think about it, when a Mormon sees you wearing a cross, what do they know?
Well, I was afraid they would think I was going to try to, being from the South, try to preach to them to death.
They automatically knew you weren't Mormon.
Well,
didn't
that's
they?
true. Yeah, you're right.
Right there, you were giving a sign, token, and symbol that
That's
you were
right.
not part of their group. So
That's right.
they went to plans B or C.
That's true.
That they
I
didn't
think
treat
of
you
it.
like a Mormon.
But another important point about the cross is that I've been told, and part of, and you know, write in, of course, if I'm wrong or right. I'm sure you will anyway. We want you to, but that the cross is not used in the LDS faith because it's how Christ was killed, and it would be the equivalent of wearing a handgun around your neck if your father was murdered by a handgun. So it was symbolically, that's what their equivalent of that is, and that's why they don't wear them and use them.
That makes
That's-
the same kind of sense as a talking snake
Yes. Yes, it does.
in the Garden of Eden, the talking snake. That's my favorite story in the Bible, a talking snake. Anyway, the cross is shunned by the Mormon Church, and only people that shun the cross are usually satanic churches and cults. Now, there was another thing I read, kind of getting towards the end here, another thing that I read and I was interested in, and I just left my mind again. That's why I don't do videos. My mind goes over here.
Is it
I don't
your
know.
mind? Well, anyway, thank you for joining us for part 2 of an outsider's view of Utah Mormonism.
And we thank Allison for being able to do this with me. Thank you for the tail, and the lobster tail. The lobster tail today at Sizzler. It was good. It was really good.
I'm glad that you liked it.
Okay. Now, are we going to chant together?
No,
Oh, we can chant together.
no. Pay me, lay me, and ail me.
Oh, God, hear the words of my mouth. So, anyway.
What's the second?
Health in the navel, marrow in the bones, strength in the loins and in the sinews, power in the priesthood be upon me and upon my posterity through all generations of time and throughout all eternity.
Bard.
Bard what?
Bard.
Bard
gone.
don't lie? Bard don't lie? What's the
Bard gone.
Oh, Bard gone.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We're gonna turn it off.
I think we are, if you know
Okay.
how to get to it. I don't know.
Thanks, guys, for
In the-
watching.
In the back, it says off and on, or it doesn't say anything, I think.